The discovery of the galleon, an indication of the proximity of the sea, broke Jose Arcadio Buendia's drive. He considered it a trick of his whimsical fate to have searched for the sea without finding it, at the cost of countless sacrifices and suffering, and to have found it all of a sudden without looking for it, as if it lay across his path like an insurmountable object. Many years later, Colonel Aurelio Buendia crossed the region again, when it was already a regular mail route, and the only part of the ship he found was its burned-out frame, in the midst of a field of poppies. Only then, convinced that the story had not been some product of his father's imagination, did he wonder how the galleon had been able to get inland to that spot. But Jose Arcadio Buendia did not concern himself with that when he found the sea after another 4 days' journey from the galleon. His dreams ended as he faced that ashen, foamy, dirty sea, which had not merited the risks and sacrifices of the adventure. "God damn it," he shouted. "Macondo is surrounded by water on all sides." The idea of a peninsular Macondo prevailed for a long time, inspired by the arbitrary map that Jose Arcadio Buendia sketched on his return from the expedition. He drew it in rage, heavily, exaggerating the difficulties of communication as if to punish himself for the absolute lack of sense with which he had chosen the place. "We'll never get anywhere," he lamented to Ursula. "We're going to rot our lives away here without receiving the benefits of science." That certainly mulled over for several months in the small room he used as his laboratory, brought him to the conception of the plan to move Macondo to a better place. But that time Ursula had anticipated his feverish designs. With the secret and implacable labor of a small ant, she predisposed the women of the village against the flightness of their husbands, who were already preparing for the move. Jose Arcadio Buendia did not know at what moment or because of what adverse forces his plan had become enveloped in a web of pretexts, disappointments, and evasions, until it turned into nothing but an illusion. Ursula watched him with innocent attention, and even felt some pity for him on the morning when she found him in the back room muttering about his plans for moving. As he placed his laboratory pieces in their original boxes, she let him finish. She let him nail up the boxes and put his initials on them with an inked brush, without reapproaching him but knowing now that he knew, because she had heard him say so in his soft monologues, that the men of the village would not back him up in his undertaking. Only when he began to take the door of the room did Ursula dare ask him what he was doing, and he answered with certain bitterness, "Since no one wants to leave, we'll leave all by ourselves." Ursula did not become upset. "We will not leave," she said. "We will stay here because we have had a son here. We have still not had a death," he said. "A person does not belong to a place until there is someone dead under the ground." Ursula replied with a soft firmness, "If I have to die for the rest of you to stay here, I will die." Jose Arcadio Buendia had not thought that his wife's will was so firm. He tried to seduce her with the charm of his fantasy, with the promise of a prodigious world where all one had to do was sprinkle some magic liquid on the ground, and the plants would bear fruit whenever a man wished, and where all manner of instruments against pain were sold at bargain prices. But Ursula was insensible to his clairvoyance. "Instead of going around thinking about your crazy inventions, you should be worrying about your sons," she replied. "Look at the state they're in, running wild, just like donkeys."
Jose Arcadio Buendia took his wife's words literally. He looked out the window and saw the barefoot children in the sunny garden, and he had the impression that only at that instant had they begun to exist, conceived by Ursula's spell. Something occurred inside of him then. Something mysterious and definitive that uprooted him from his own time and carried him adrift through an unexplored region of his memory. While Ursula continued sweeping the house, which was safe now from being abandoned for the rest of her life, he stood there with an absorbed look, contemplating the children until his eyes became moist and he dried them with the back of his hand, exhaling a deep sigh of resignation.